Hi boys and girls, this is Mr. Barr. What I'm doing is I'm going to give you an explanation of the poetry translation assignment. I'll show you how I did one, and then I'm going to walk you through the one that you're going to do this week. You'll see it's super easy, and actually I hope maybe even kind of fun. So this is a poem that I did when I was practicing this. The title of the poem is Angel Island, Poem 42. So you see, it's originally written in Chinese, so you have all the Chinese characters here. And the whole point of this lesson is you're going to practice translating. Before you do anything though, you'll have a passage to read on the side that kind of gives you some background knowledge so that you have some ideas in mind before you start to translate the poem. So this poem was written by someone who was being held in Angel Island. Even though it's not a completely accurate idea, Angel Island was like Ellis Island. Just to give you a sense, it was a place where people from China were trying to come to the United States, but were stopped there and questioned before they'd be allowed to enter the US. But many people were never allowed to enter the US and were held there for a long period of time and actually just sent back without ever making it to the United States. So this poem was actually written, this is a picture of it, in the wall by someone who was being held there for a long time. So it's an interesting thing to do, to see it first of all in the native language, but then also to think about what it means. So you would start by reading this information on the right side. Look at it in its native language. Then, the next page, you're given a translator's glossary. All right, so the translator's glossary is every word of the poem. It shows you what it looks like in the native language. It shows you what part of speech it is and the specific word. Here it gives you a definition, what the word means, and here are some other possible meanings for the word. So you see this translator's glossary has 2 pages with all the words in the poem. Remember, I'm talking about this poem here. And after that, what you need to do is you have all the lines of the poem. You're looking back word by word at the translator's guide, and you're thinking, what does each line mean in English if you were trying to translate it? All right, so notice that this is a very rough draft. So as I was working through one, I put down what it meant, and then I started to change around the words. I started to change around the words so that it would make sense, so it would create meaning in English, to try to capture what I thought what the poet was saying in each one of the lines. And then finally, you have the page where it says make it flow. For make it flow, you're looking back at the rough draft version of the phrase by phrase, and you are putting down your final draft. All right? So when you go to do this for me, the make it flow page, that'll be what you type up in Google Docs and share with me. So let's take a look at the poem that you're going to be reading. This is actually a haiku. All right, so haiku, we know, 3-line poem, 575. This one is a very famous one by Basho. So you're going to look at that. It's written in Japanese. You have a drawing of Basho, and here you have some background knowledge about him. So let's take a look at that. It says, Matsuo Basho was born in Japan in 1644. Introduced to poetry at a young age, he became a well-known poet and teacher. He later renounced the social, urban life of the literary circles, choosing instead to wander throughout the country to gain inspiration for his writing. Traveling alone off the beaten path in medieval Japan was regarded as immensely dangerous, and at first Basho was expected to simply die in the middle of nowhere or be killed by bandits. As his travels continued, however, he met many friends and grew to enjoy the changing scenery and the seasons. Basho was one of the earliest, some say the first, to write haiku, a type of poem comprised of just 17 syllables. He is internationally appreciated as one of the greatest poets of all time. So that gives you background knowledge before you go to read this poem right here. Then you're going to go through and get a sheet of paper. You're going to want to just write down those words, so the words and the characters for each of the 3 lines. And then you're going to write down definitions, just like I did. So when you look back at mine, I'm looking at the translator's guide for each one of the words, the translator's glossary, and I am finding a meaning. So look, for instance, the first word is jiao, long. So I go to the translator's guide and I see that means flood dragon. So I write down flood dragon. So I'm looking for what each word means in its native language, and then I'm pulling it over here. And then notice I go over it in another pen, and I'm changing it based on what I think the poet's trying to say. So once you create a rough draft on a sheet of notebook paper, and you make your changes like I made my changes, then you're gonna do what says make it flow. All right, so when I say make it flow, this was me trying to make it flow here. You see where I'm in blue and I'm changing the words around to make it more poetic. All right, so you wanna make sure for making it flow, does your translation follow the same form? So you're writing a haiku. Does it have 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables? What sounds stand out to you in the original? How will your translation sound similar? Is that important to you? For some poems that may be important, for some it may not be. Syntax. So syntax means word order. Word order changes across languages, so you may need to rearrange words so the poem flows in English. Read your translation aloud. Does it sound natural to you? All right, so that's what I'm doing right here. I had to change around some of the words in order to make it flow in English. So you're not literally going to be able to do just a word for word translation. You're gonna have to move words around so that they make sense in English. So what you're doing is you're just giving me, at the end, your haiku, which is your 3-line poem, the translation of the original. All right? Good luck, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me.